We live in a world today where there are several 100 million people starving to death. They're starving to death right now. All over this country today, there is a certain demoralization. And the demoralization is that some people believe that what goes on in the White House and what goes on in the Congress reflects the will of the American people. And by assembling here today, as the Rainbow Coalition and as other groups from 46 states in America, what we are saying very loud and clear is that Ronald Reagan and his billionaire friends do not represent America, but we do.
In some of the largest cities in America, 50% of the kids are not graduating high school. The cost of college education in this country is zooming up, so you have to be a wealthy person to send your kid to college. There was once a dream that my parents had and many people's parents had, that if you work hard and go to school, you can get a college education.
But what people like this gentleman do not know is, for example, that in Scandinavia, in Sweden, you've had socialist governments for decades, that in fact that country is probably in most respects more democratic than the United States. They have 80 or 90% of the people voting. They have strong labor unions. They have a more open media. They have a healthcare system guaranteeing healthcare to all of the people. Not to say that that's a utopia.
But at a time when the wealthiest people of this country have seen a tremendous increase in their income, while at the same time the standard of living of working people and poor people has declined, I will be damned if I will vote for a proposal which will stick it to the middle class and the working people. And Mr. Speaker, I've got a problem. I've got a problem with a president and a Congress which allows 5 million children to go hungry, 2 million people to sleep out on the streets, cities to become breeding grounds for drugs and violence. And they say, we're getting tough on crime. If you want to get tough on crime, let's deal with the causes of crime. Let's demand that every man, woman, and child in this country have a decent opportunity and a decent standard of living. Let's not keep putting poor people into jail and disproportionately punishing blacks. While our children go hungry and sleep out on the streets, lack adequate health care or educational opportunity, the wealthiest people in this country have grown far richer while their tax burden has declined. We have an approach to campaign financing which, to a very large degree, allows wealthy people and major corporations to buy and sell politicians. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and ordinary Americans are shut out of the political system. The United States today is one of 2 nations in the industrialized world that does not have a national health care system. That has to do with campaign finance reform. The United States today, the chief executive officers are seeing their salaries soar, and the gap between the rich and the poor grows wider. 10 million Americans are unemployed. That has to do with campaign finance reform. The system, by and large, is owned and controlled by big money interests, and the President of the United States and much of the Congress does the work of protecting the big corporations and the wealthy people who control the economic and political life of this nation. This country, this great country, this democracy, is evolving into an oligarchy. And an oligarchy is a country in which a few people have tremendous wealth and tremendous power and exercise that wealth and that power over all. We have seen a situation where we give huge tax breaks to the wealthy and you have 2 million people sleeping out on the street. Billions of dollars into all kinds of obsolete weapon systems, and you have 5 million children who are hungry. Let us give hope to people in America today who have lost hope. Let us provide jobs for the jobless, housing for the homeless, food for the hungry. Workers in the United States today are working longer hours, significantly longer hours, taking less vacation time than they used to take. And is there any wonder why so many millions of Americans feel stressed out? They need to work longer hours, they need to work overtime in order to compensate for the real decline in their wages. Let's talk about welfare for the rich and the powerful. Now, we start off from a proposition that the wealthiest 1% of the population in this country owns more wealth than the bottom 90%. When we talk about the growth of the economy, what we should ask ourselves is who is gaining that income. And what is clearly going on is the lion's share, the overwhelming amount of the growth in income is going to the very, very wealthiest people,
while the vast majority of the people are seeing a decline in their real incomes.
I find it ironic that it is the taxpayers of this country who are going to have to bail out banks that have made billions and billions of dollars investing in Asia. Is it morally right that CEOs of large corporations now make over 500 times what their workers make and seem to make more money to the degree that they lay off American workers? Walmart has replaced General Motors as the major employer in America, paying people starvation wages rather than living wages. We can fight terrorism, protect the American people without undermining the basic constitutional rights which make us a free country. They understand that our trade policies are failing when they note that our trade deficit is huge and growing larger every single year. And it seems to me, Madam President, that before we go forward again in pursuit of a failing trade agenda, we might want to sit back, take a moratorium, understand why our trade policies are failing, and then put together trade agreements that work for the working people and the middle class of this country rather than just the CEOs of large multinational corporations. The wealthiest 1/10 of 1%, 1/10 of 1%, 300,000 men, women, and children now earn more income than do the bottom 150 million Americans. No matter how many children live in poverty, no matter how high the unemployment numbers are, they want more and more and more. And I say enough is enough. And you want to know why the American people are cynical about what goes on in Washington? You want to know why the Congress of the United States has an extremely low level of support or favorability? It is because the American people know they are getting ripped off. You got millions of people today who are working longer hours and their income is going down. Their wages are going down. This grotesque level of inequality is immoral. It is bad economics. It is unsustainable. This type of rigged economy is not what America is supposed to be about. This has got to change. And as your president, together, we are going to change it. When we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. And I pledge to you that every day I will fight for the public interest, not the corporate interest. I will not abandon any segment of American society, whether you're gay or black or Latino, poor or working class, just because it is politically expedient at a given time. So let us.
Hey, good evening, y'all. My name is Dan Whitfield. I am the Democratic candidate that is running to unseat and replace Senator John Boozman in the U.S. Senate. So I figured that was just a fitting video to begin my live stream with, because unfortunately, when I had to suspend my campaign back last October against Senator Tom Cotton, I played this video, and it really touches me, because Bernie Sanders was the inspiration for me, the catalyst that woke me up to the corruption in our government, that got me to want to run for office so that I can put an end to things like special interest money influencing our politics and things like that. So thank you for taking the time to watch that, and if not, thank you all for taking the time to join me this evening. I haven't done a live stream Q&A update for quite a while now. I wanted to make sure to take a little break, rejuvenate, get ready for this busy 2-year campaign we're about to start right here, right now together. And I'm ready. I'm rested, I'm rejuvenated, and I'm ready to go. So I have a few things that I want to go over this evening with y'all. Since it is my first live stream for this campaign, I did make a list of some different policies that I support and why I support them. So at the end of, once I go through our updates, I will go through my policies. And when I'm going through my policies, make sure y'all ask questions. I am streaming on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook right now. So ask questions. I got all these different windows pulled up, and I can answer any questions that y'all have about my policies and why I support them. So make sure y'all do that. Let me unpin this real quick. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate it. The first thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to update you all a little bit about what's going on with our court hearing for ballot access for the 2020 general elections against Tom Cotton. Well, unfortunately, our hearing for ballot access still has yet to be scheduled. So we filed our first expedite back, I think it was July 8th. And unfortunately, the Attorney General's office filed an opposition to our expedite, and then after that, their opposition to our expedite was approved by an unknown administrative panel in the Eighth Circuit. We filed a second expedite. Unfortunately, the Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge, opposed that again, and their opposition was approved a second time. So we are still waiting. At this point, I'm not sure if the judge is just going to throw it out as moot, since the election is already over, or if they will at least allow us to present our case so that maybe in the future, independent candidates that are trying to get ballot access here in Arkansas will be better able to get ballot access, because I think we've only had 4 candidates for U.S. Senate in the last 60 years get the required amount of signatures to get ballot access for the U.S. Senate position. And we were actually, with all of y'all's help, the first campaign to do it completely unpaid. Well, I believe it was 98.9% unpaid. It was all volunteer based. We were able to get about 60% of the signatures we needed with only about 40% of the collection time because of COVID-19. So thank you all so much for that. We made a lot of progress, and we have built a coalition over the last year of Arkansans and people around the country that want change, because we can't do it anymore. We can't remain having low wages, remain paying high taxes, while billionaires like Jeff Bezos and giant billion-dollar corporations like Amazon and Walmart are paying next to nothing or nothing in taxes while taking hundreds of millions of dollars of government subsidies, our money, out of our banks that are supposed to help us for our social programs. So hopefully we can start to work past this craziness that we have been seeing over the last 4 years and start to get some legislation put through that's actually going to help us, American citizens, rather than helping just the richest 1/10 of 1%. So that's where we are with our case, still waiting for it to be scheduled. The next thing I wanted to do is I really wanted to thank you guys so much for taking part and participating in our Angel Tree Christmas fundraiser. We were able to raise, I believe, over $1,370, and I was able to buy gifts for 77 children. So y'all made 77 children so happy. Thank you guys so much. I know with COVID-19, with so many parents losing work and all the different crazy circumstances around people's lives, it was going to be a really, really hard Christmas season for children. So thank you guys so much for helping making it better for even just 77 children. That's a world of a difference for so many kids. Let's see. I'm just going to kind of roll through all this update stuff just because I want to talk a lot about my policy so I can answer all y'all's questions about it, because best part about starting a campaign is answering questions about policy. I love to do it, so make sure you ask lots of questions. All right. So as you all heard, when I introduced myself, I am no longer an independent candidate. I decided that I was going to run for United States Senate against Senator John Boozman as a Democrat this cycle. And I know last year and the year before, last election cycle against Tom Cotton, I ran as an independent because I do firmly believe that our representatives should answer to their constituents and not a political party. So I want to make this pledge and promise to y'all right now. I am not going to sell my soul to any political party, any special interests, billionaires, or corporations. I am still going to work for you. And the best way that I can get elected and work for you is as a Democrat. So that is what I'm going to do. My policies, my platform, which we'll go over, more aligned to the left with the Democrats. So I figured that was the best fit for me. And it's also very important right now. We just had, our historic race in Georgia where we flipped the Georgia blue. How crazy is that? Georgia, a historically red southern state, was flipped blue because people are tired of everything that's happening and they want change. And we want change. And we are going to do the same here in Arkansas. We became a ruby red state last election cycle, the reddest state in America. And you know what we're going to do? we're going to completely polarize Arkansas in these next 2 years. We are going to go from the reddest state to blue in the next 2 years, and y'all are going to help me do it, and we are going to do this together, and we are going to do it. It will happen. It's just going to take hard work. It's going to take time. It's going to take volunteers. It's going to take people taking time out of their day for free to make phone calls, to knock on doors, to talk to their friends and family. It's not going to be easy, but it is doable, and we can achieve this amazing goal of flipping Arkansas blue, and we can do it together. So I guess I'll actually talk about this first. So kind of what I want to focus on for the next year is, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's so early to start campaigning, blah, blah, blah. Well, realistically, it's not. It's extremely important that we take this very seriously and we do everything we can to make sure we do flip Arkansas blue. So for the next year, I really want to focus on going to all of the different parts in Arkansas, all the different counties, meeting with different Democratic county clubs, and I want to make sure that we have candidates running for every single position. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My OBS studio disconnected and reconnected, so let me go right back to where we were. We are going to flip Arkansas blue, and we are going to do this by organizing at a state level. What I would like to see done... did Facebook return? All right, I see Twitter's good. I see YouTube's good. Awesome. I'll answer your question on YouTube real quick. Is that Starla? Thank you so much, Starla, for watching my live stream tonight. I'm out of Massachusetts. The best thing you can do right now is go to danforarkansas.com, and at danforarkansas.com, you can actually see all my policy. You can see I actually wrote an autobiography. You can click Meet Dan and get to know a little bit about me and who I am and where I come from. And if you like what you're reading and you like what you see, then the best way to help from out of state is to just donate a small amount. Our last campaign was completely grassroots, 100% individual contributions. Let's see here. Is my Facebook working? Let me double check. I don't think it is. But if you like what you see, just a small contribution helps so much. Even if it's $1, $5, $10, everything helps. All right, let me stop and restart Facebook as it appears. It says connecting Facebook, move, disconnect, reconnect. Let's see here. Yeah, sorry, my OBS has never disconnected like that before. I lost it on Facebook, but I'm good on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. It still says Facebook is connecting. Boo. All right, I'll give that one just 1 second, and I'll talk a little bit about my questions coming in from other platforms, and then I'll get back onto Facebook in just 1 minute. All right. But yeah, so if you like what you see, you can also go to my media tab, and in media, I have all of my old weekly live stream and update and Q&As. They're all recorded. They're all there for everyone to see. All of the different interviews I've done. Check out all of that stuff. There's a lot of hours, so just you can kind of scroll through it. And if you like what you see, just please donate. All right, let's try get Facebook back online now. It's connecting. But I can definitely see my Twitter and my Twitch are working. Just no Facebook, huh? Golly. Of course, my first one. Okay, yeah, I'll just start up my phone and go live from there. All right. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to go live from my phone for Facebook. Oh no, I just have my green screen behind me. Hey y'all, sorry I lost you. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'll do my Facebook Live from my phone for now until I can get it reconnected on Caster. It's never cut off on me like that before, so I'm not really sure what's up with it. So, all right, I will continue kind of where we're at. So what I'm going to focus on, let's, I guess, circle back to what we're focusing on for the next year. Actually, I guess I can probably move this a little bit closer so it doesn't look like I'm looking super far off. All right. So for the next year, where we are focusing is we are going to be focusing on making sure that no Republicans are running unopposed in the state of Arkansas again, because that was just completely unacceptable. I believe we had 66 state legislators run unopposed and win their seat without even getting a vote. So that's kind of not what democracy is supposed to look like. So what I'm going to do for the next year is I'm going to focus on traveling the state, meeting with different Democratic county parties, and also maybe Democratic Socialists of America, the Green Party, as many different groups as we can, and we are going to find candidates to run in every single district. It is going to be a lot of work. It's not going to be easy. We're going to, what I'm going to start to do is I'm working on organizing every Democratic county party should have a candidate outreach or candidate organizer, candidate support position, and most of them have that position filled. So I'm going to work on organizing all these people together into one group so that we can organize as a state and make sure that we can get candidates in every single position. And that's going to be very important because one of the issues that we faced in 2020 was Arkansas was the #1 for low voter turnout. We had 44, or I think 45.5% of eligible voters in Arkansas didn't even go vote. And we cannot be having that to happen again. It just can't happen. So what we'll do is I will travel to a county party and I will have a list of the different positions that are there. Huh? Oh, here. Is that a little bit better? I will have a list of the different positions, different state legislative positions, state senator. Of course, we need to make sure Womack, Crawford, all these different people are also not running unopposed, because Rick Crawford ran unopposed for a federal position here in Arkansas. He still spent, I think it was like $986,000 on his campaign somehow, but we got to make sure they're not running unopposed. So I will be coming to y'all, to your towns, to talk to people, to make sure that we can have someone running in all these different positions. One of the big problems, oh, thank you so much, Starla, I really appreciate it. One of the big problems with finding candidates here in Arkansas is, unfortunately, Arkansas also consequently has some of the highest filing fees in America. So what I want to do is I want to get with Michael John Gray and I want to see if we can figure out how we can do filing fees maybe differently this upcoming filing. I think it's actually going to be 2021 is the filing. Oh, it is, yeah, this November. So this year, I want to see if we can do filing fees maybe a little bit different. But of course, this will have to be approved by the DPA. Now, what I would like to see done maybe a little bit differently is maybe if people only had to pay a fraction up front and then could continue paying the filing fee throughout the campaign until the primary. Break it down into payments or something like that. Or, you know, possibly if the DPA is really serious about flipping Arkansas blue and taking our state back from the special interests that purchased it, unfortunately, we don't have the Koch brothers just to come in and say, oh, here's $10 million. Go ahead, elect all the different GOP Republicans you can, take all of our money. We got you. We don't have a billionaire to do that for the Democrats here in Arkansas. So will the DPA consider removing filing fees for 1 year? That would be amazing. We could get candidates to file. It's not like we're having a problem of too many candidates filing to run for office and having these big, giant, crazy primaries. The problem is nobody's filing to run for office. So that's one of the issues that we'll be talking about over the next couple months is filing fees here in Arkansas. Let's see here. But that's kind of, you know, why I'm running as a Democrat this year for this election is because I really feel that we can, as a united Arkansas front, take our state back from the special interests and make sure that we don't have a undemocratic election in 2022 like we did in 2020. Now, another really important reason for why I decided to run as a Democrat is because for the first time in a while, Democrats have the majority in the Senate, which is so extremely important. And I can't really say necessarily if the Democratic majority leader is going to be worlds better than Mitch McConnell. Well, I'm sure he's going to be way better. But one thing I guarantee you he's not going to do is he's not going to table every single bill that passes the House and remove the ability for a Senate to vote on it, which is extremely important. That's part of a democracy, is having the ability to vote. Whether you vote for or against something is irrelevant, but you have to be able to vote on it. And Mitch McConnell destroyed our democracy single-handedly by refusing to allow the Senate to vote on so many important bills, hundreds of bills, several hundreds of bills. So I'm very excited to see the Democrats did take control over the Senate. Now we can bring those bills up for vote. I don't know if they'll all pass. There are a lot of ones that need to pass, but we will actually have the chance to vote on them. So I do not want to run as an independent and then win this seat as an independent against John Boozman and threaten the Democrats' majority in the Senate. I think that would be a very bad move for all of Americans. So that's kind of why I'm running as a Democrat. And again, my policy does closely align with the Democratic platform. I did attend the DPA's convention that they had a month or two ago. And I did ask a question of, is it okay for a candidate to run as a Democrat if they don't follow the complete DPA platform, if they have extra things? Like some of the things that I support that aren't on the Democratic platform are Medicare for all, which I think is extremely important, especially here in Arkansas, one of the poorest states in America. And then also the federal decriminalization of cannabis and nationally expunging cannabis-related convictions. Of course, the Green New Deal is another really important one, but these things aren't on the DPA's party platform. Now, they do it for a reason. It's strategic because they don't want the Republicans just to come in and say, oh, blah, 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 you're a socialist because you're a Democrat. Well, not all Democrats support things like Medicare for all, and you don't have to be a socialist to support Medicare for all because Medicare for all isn't socialism. But that's just kind of the point that I was trying to get at. So I think it's very important right now to focus on flipping the state blue, keeping the majority in the Senate, and giving Americans the chance to actually have a democracy for the first time in a while. Now, those are kind of my updates on what's going on with there. A lot of the questions that I get through text, email, and phone calls are, how can I help? So I want to be very clear on how y'all can help, because it's super important that if we are to flip Arkansas blue and to take these Senate seats from the GOP operatives who currently hold them, we have to work together. Now, the best way to help is to come into our team and get organized. So I do have a Slack group, and in our Slack group, Slack is just, it's a chat platform like Microsoft Teams or Facebook Messenger, but it's a way that we can organize as a team. Now, if you join our Slack, what I'll do is I will put the invite link out after my live stream here. Oh, hi, I'll look at y'all too for a little bit. Let me see if Castor restarted my Facebook, because I'm just curious. Nope, still says connecting. Okay, so what I'll do is I will post the link out about how to join my Slack group. That way you can join the group. Any of your specific skills you can just list in there, and we will find the right teams for you, whether it is making phone calls, going door to door. If you have experience on political campaigns from before, you can help share your experience. I also will have teams for website development, for graphics design, all these different things. We have so many different groups. If you are good with the press, we'll have press rooms where you can work with my awesome press secretary, Janie, and we will make sure that everyone is in a spot where they can help us to replace and unseat Senator John Boozman. So another thing you can do is I do have Facebook groups. There is Dan Whitfield for Arkansans. That Facebook group is really awesome. Thank you guys so much for the support in that group. I love keeping an eye on it and seeing all your important posts to keep me up to date on what's happening in Arkansas. That way I can make sure that I help to basically extend your voice and help everybody know exactly what's happening in different parts of Arkansas. Another group is Volunteers for Dan Whitfield. Now, if you go to that group, then that's where you can also put your skills, and you can help get organized in that group as well. But we do have those two Facebook groups, and I guess the last thing that I really wanted to mention on how y'all can help is I need a campaign manager. The best way to find a campaign manager is to just get your best friend who's, fiercely passionate about politics like you are and have your best friend manage everything. And that's just not going to work for me. What I really want is I want a successful campaign where we can actually flip a red seat blue. And I'm going to need a successful campaign manager to do that. So if you yourself are a campaign manager, if you've managed a campaign successfully and you know how to help, please reach out to me. Or if you know someone who might have some extra time, because of course it is time, reach out to them and let them know danforarkansas.com, have them check out my policy, see if it's something that they would be interested in. And once we get a good campaign manager, that's going to make a world of difference, because when you do a campaign across a statewide race like this, there are a lot of things you have to know. You need to know when Faulkner County is having an event, when Pulaski County is having an event. You need to make sure you know when every different county in the state is having a fair, a rodeo, bullfrog races, anything. You have to know when those events are. That way we can get out there and talk to people and help show them what our platform is. And that's how you go out and you get votes. So we need to have a good campaign manager, and I'm hoping y'all can help me find that. All right. But that's kind of all of my updates and my focus for the next year. And I really wanted to make time to go over my policy. We're only 23 minutes in right now. So I do want to talk about my different policies, and I want y'all to ask questions about my policies. That way I can answer your questions and, clarify some things right now for y'all. So if you do have any questions, ask your questions. Now is the time before I get into my policy. I'm going to go back real quick, read Facebook, see if I had any questions on here for my stream before it disconnected. Sorry about that, guys. I do apologize. I'm not sure what Caster's problem is right now. But unfortunately, it looks like Caster still is not able to connect to Facebook for one reason or another. I will check that out later. All right. I know why. Oh, no, that's not it, because it's still working on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube. All right, Allison. I really hope so, Allison. I'll do everything I can to make sure that this is the kind of country that we're all proud for our children to grow up in, the kind of country where you can have a family of 4 and one parent or person working, full-time 40, 50 hours a week, and be able to have that, American dream opportunity where you can go on a vacation once a year, where you don't have to worry about, oh, I've got a crack in my windshield. How are we going to pay $200-300 for a new windshield? What we're going to do, just leave it cracked. I'm going to get a ticket. All these different things, driving around bald tires. I mean, there's so many different things that we can't afford as Americans today and the 2020s that would have been no problem back in the day, because wages have remained low while the cost of living has increased. Hi, Jeannie. I hope you're feeling better. Send me a message later and let me know how you're doing. Joshua Hicks, so you're running as a Democrat. Are you going to have to win a primary first, or are the Dems actually behind me? So that's a good question. It's a very important question, because as of right now, I know there's, of course, been talk or whatever, but no Democrats have announced that they're going to run against Senator John Boozman for the U.S. Senate. And I think that it's actually really important to look at what this upcoming election and primary cycle is going to look like. Because I think for the Republicans, they're going to be running Attorney General Leslie Rutledge, who's actually currently under suit for spending $1.7 million Arkansan tax dollars on her campaign advertising. And it's also going to be between Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We all know who Sarah Huckabee Sanders is. And then also Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin is going to be running. So it's going to be a very, very interesting Republican primary. I mean, talk about divided. They are going to really, be fighting tooth and nail for this position. So while the Republicans are fighting amongst themselves and divided, imagine if we didn't have a Democratic primary. Imagine, while the Republicans are panicking and fighting amongst each others, we can unify, come together, heal as a Democratic Party of Arkansas, and focus on one candidate to go forward and destroy John Boozman, because that's what we need to do. We need to come together and we need to destroy the opposition. We need to take this seat back, because we can't afford to lose 1 or 2 blue seats in a different state and lose the majority in the Senate. What will happen if the Republicans regain control in 2022 of the Senate? nothing is going to get accomplished. Mitch McConnell will regain his title as the Grim Reaper of bills and Senate Majority Leader. So we have to be very careful about how we are going to do 2022. Now, if they do primary me, I am expecting them, of course, to primary me because I am more progressive. I'm not a polished politician. I'm a working class Arkansan, and I want change. That's why I'm running for change. And if they do primary me, I'll do everything I can to win that primary. I will go out. I will talk to y'all. I look forward to a debate against a Democrat, especially someone who doesn't support things like Medicare for all. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. But I really hope the DPA decides that, there are so many more important things to do than any kind of infighting for the U.S. Senate position this year. Excuse me. Been a while since I've talked this much and done a live stream. All right. Now, what I think we should be doing this November is we need to be focusing on all of the different positions. U.S. Senate is one position out of many that we need to have candidates filed for. We have to get someone running for governor. We have to get a good Democratic candidate for governor. We have to get a good Democratic candidate running for lieutenant governor. Y'all know Jason Rappert. Oh my gosh. He is running for lieutenant governor of the great state of Arkansas. We cannot allow a right-wing extremist like that gentleman to run for lieutenant governor unopposed and win that seat. We cannot do it. We have to have a good candidate against Jason Rappert. We also have to worry about Secretary of State. John Thurston neglects to do his job. They don't even update voter registration on their website. Candidates that are running, independent candidates and candidates who need signatures to run for office, can't even go online and find out how many signatures they need to qualify because those records aren't kept and they're not updated. We have to make sure we have an honest person with integrity to go up against John Thurston to run for Secretary of State. We need to have a good Democratic Attorney General. We can't have any more of this BS that we've seen with Leslie Rutledge. We can't have that. We need an honest Democrat with integrity to go in and run for Attorney General. Now, that's not even to mention our state legislative seats. We have to make sure that we have dozens of Democratic candidates to run for our state legislative seats. We need to make sure we have dozens of Democratic candidates to run for our state legislative seats. We have state Senate, we have our state legislator. We've got all of these different positions we need people to run for. And that's why we had 60 seats run unopposed, because it is hard and you have to be organized. And we are going to be organized. We are going to work together to make sure that we don't have any unopposed Republicans in 2022. So how do we do this? That's kind of the biggest question I get from a lot of people who I've been talking to about volunteering to help. Talk to your friends and family. Have you yourself ever considered running for office? Run for office. It is kind of expensive. It takes time. You have to sacrifice other things out of your life to do it. But what's more important? I mean, that's not the way to say it. It's just really tough. It's not easy being a candidate, but we need people that are willing to do it if we're going to take our state back. So consider doing it yourself. Talk to your children if your children are old enough and they're passionate about politics and seeing change. Talk to your friends, your family, your parents. Talk to people about politics. I know politics isn't a popular thing to talk about. It brings division amongst families and friends. But you know what? If we don't talk about it, then we end up with things like Arkansas, where we have the lowest wages in the country nearly and the highest taxes in the country. All right. So let me see real quick here. Let me continue reading through this. But yeah, Josh, I am expecting them to primary me. I hope they don't. I hope we can focus on unity and healing and coming together and focus on all of these different positions rather than this position here. But if they do primary me, I'm ready, because you know what? No matter what any other Democrat I run against can say, I will always be for the people, by the people, and I will always work for you and nobody else. Oh, thank you so much, Allison. I appreciate it. I am hoping, I think April is going to be the last set of vaccinations for pretty much anybody who hasn't been vaccinated yet. So by May, June, or July, we should be to the point where COVID has cooled off enough that we can really hit the ground hard and start campaigning, getting out there, to finding candidates, talking to them about policy, talking to them about their representatives who currently represent them and how those representatives have been voting in the past. Sorry, Juanita. I mean, I just say y'all, that's just part of my vocabulary. All right. So I made it through the other Facebook stream. Let's see. Oh my gosh. It looks like Castro went. Did it go back online with Facebook? No, it didn't. All right. Let me refresh this and I can get all y'all's questions from Facebook. And while that's refreshing, yeah, thank you so much, Starla. Currently represent them and how those representatives. Let me refresh this and I can get all right, so. Oh my gosh, I've got multiple streams going right now. I'm so sorry, Facebook. I've got caster streams going. I've got my cell phone streams going. So it's going to be a little difficult to do. Let me see if I can pull up all these different comments. All right. So if I pull up comments here, let me mute this. Oh my gosh, I've got multiple streams going. Okay. Wow, y'all can see my green screen behind me. That's pretty cool. All right. Bye, Boozman. Absolutely. Aaron, how much are filing fees? That's a very, very important question. I'm sorry it took 60 minutes to answer it. And I hope you're still here. And if not, I'll message you later. So the filing fees are different for each position. Let me see if I can actually pull up. Let me see if I can pull up exactly. All right, so the Democratic Party lowered their filing fees last year. All right, so, oh my gosh, they are so extremely expensive. So for United States Senate, my filing fee currently is going to be $12,000 just to file. Okay, so for state house candidates and for state Senate candidates in 2020, it was $4,500 to run for office. $4,500 just to file to run in your primary. So I'll definitely be talking to the head of the DPA, Michael John Gray, about this. I don't know if they'll work with us on this or lower the fees down. But when we have 66 Republicans running unopposed, we have to do something about it. But for state house and state Senate is $4,500 currently. Let's see here. Okay, so the changes are from 3,000 to 1,500 for state house seats that haven't been contested in the past 2 election cycles. So that's the fee in 8 house districts. 1,500 for state house for 8 different districts. They're lowering it from 3,000 to 750 for house seats that haven't been contested in the past 3 election cycles to 750. Can you imagine a Republican running unopposed for 6 years, 3 election cycles? So if you're running against an unopposed Republican who has not ran opposed in the last 3 years, $750. And that's going to be for house, state house. For state Senate, they're lowering from $4,500 to $2,250 for state seats that haven't been contested in the past 2 years. And for state Senate, from $4,500 to $1,125 for state Senate seats that haven't been contested in the past 3 election cycles. So, I mean, $1,125 if you're running for state Senate against someone who hasn't run opposed in the last 3 cycles. So it's still kind of expensive. I'll see if we can do something to work on that so that we're making sure that, people can afford to file to run for these positions. Let's see. It also says the executive committee also voted to clarify the party's requirements for candidates to file by petition. The filing fee will be waived if the candidate collects signatures on a petition 3% of the registered voters in the district where he runs. However, the signatures from registered Republicans will not be counted. The party said in its news release, petitions must be submitted to the state Democratic Party between October 23rd and October 25th. So if you live in a smaller county where the population is lower, then you can actually run as a Democrat and have your filing fee waived if you can get 3% of the population to sign a petition for you, but they all must be Democrats. So really it's more than 3%, but they're trying to do some things to make it easier for candidates to run. But you know what? When we have an election with 66 unopposed Republicans, the filing fees need to go down to $0. Make sure there is someone to run against every single Republican. That's just so extremely important. Let's see. Are going to be running as an independent or on the Democratic ticket, Ben? I'm going to be running as a Democrat on the Democratic ticket. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Tucker, for putting those on there. Yeah, I believe for the 2022 cycle this summer, the DPA is going to come together and determine what their filing fees will be for the 2022 elections. Yeah, definitely, Anthony. I'm always down to do an interview. So send me a message, let me know, connect us together, and I do appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so we're caught up on that Facebook stream. Let me get to the other Facebook stream real quick. Yeah, definitely, Anthony. All right. Will you be working with groups like Justice Democrats, the Rebellion PAC? I know they help progressive candidates out. You might contact the Young Turks too. They have a pretty big platform for independent progressive media. They're already helping Nina Turner. Awesome. Yeah, Nina Turner is wonderful. I love her so much. I will be reaching out with Justice Democrats and all these different groups, but the way that Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress work is me as a candidate, I can't just contact them and be like, here's my platform. My name is Dan. I'm running against the GOP senator, blah, 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 blah. They don't care about any of that. What Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress want are nominations. They want supporters to go onto their website and to fill out information to nominate candidates. And when they get enough nominations for a candidate, that's when they will call me and talk to me about my platform. They don't want me to call them. And that's how that works. I found that out running as an independent. They didn't want to support me because I was an independent. And at the time, there was a Democrat running in that race. Oh, man. Thank you, Tucker, for answering these questions for me. You're awesome, man. A GoFundMe page. Wow, that's a really good idea. Maybe what we can do is we can work on some kind of a PAC for Democrats running against unopposed Republicans. That way we might be able to get some donations from all across the country to pool together to help pay for filing fees for candidates. Yeah, well, actually, Allison, I was able to roll over $20,000+ from my campaign against Tom Cotton to this campaign. So we do have, I think it's like maybe $20,000 or $22,000 in the account right now still. So I do have enough to pay for my filing fees. And what we're going to be doing is I'm not going to fundraise really hard right now because it's still kind of early. Of course, we do need to get some money rolling in to, start that momentum going. But I'm going to mostly wait to focus on fundraising until after the vaccines have really come out and things are starting to get back to normal and people aren't struggling so much as they are right now. Let's see here. So yeah, Jim Wallace, he suggested that, let's see here. His proposal was to have the initial down payment a small percentage of the annual salary. 1% was the proposition. So a state Senate candidate would pay about $410. Then each month they would pay 10% of their cash contributions to the DPA. Which is a really good idea. I don't know if the DPA has voted on it, but that's definitely something we can talk about in the future, because we have to be talking about filing fees, how we're going to pay for filing fees, and how we're going to get the Democratic Party of Arkansas to work with candidates for filing fees to make sure we don't have 66 Republicans running unopposed again. All right, let's see here. Definitely. Oh, hey, Lee, thank you for joining us. And absolutely, what Lee said on YouTube was, we can always use candidates on the local level. One can consider running for a JP, Justice of the Peace position, or your county's quorum court. So, of course, you know, we're just talking U.S. Senate, U.S. House, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General, State Senate, State Legislator. And then, you know, there's so many more things. We have to make sure that we have candidates running for Justice of the Peace. I mean, these are super important positions a lot of people don't know about. They determine how our tax money is spent. Super important stuff. So there are, of course, so many different positions to run for. And while I am traveling the state, even if I have to go stand out at parks in counties that don't have a Democratic county, a Democratic Party county party thing, even if I have to stand at a park or outside a library or at a courthouse or at the DMV, I'm going to go there and I'm going to stand and talk to people about running for office, because we need people to run for office. Is there, so Starla on YouTube, is there a list of prospective Democratic candidates for other positions? If not, how can we help identify progressives to help them to run for seats? Give me Gray's number. I want to lower those fees. So you can find Gray's information. Just, search Gray DPA and it should pop up. And then as far as having a way to identify candidates, it's really tough right now, but I mean, personally, I will be making a list. I'll be going through over the next year, finding candidates, and I will, of course, publish all that information as I get it to make a resource for people to go and see who's running against who, where they're at, and what they stand for. Let's see, you can also use progressive candidates for school board positions. Absolutely. We saw how important it was, actually, how important school board positions are just through the COVID pandemic that we've been seeing. It's insane that we actually have school board employees that thought COVID was a hoax. They didn't believe in COVID. They don't wear masks. One of these school board members even said that they were bringing their children around people to hopefully get them COVID so that they could get herd immunity. I mean, just crazy stuff. These people are determining when our children go back to schools, when they should be taken out for safety. It's super crazy. How many teachers and staff have already lost their lives just in Arkansas alone because some school board member didn't want to take COVID seriously and put that video. Sorry, Facebook, y'all got me with the green screen. You might lose me on the other one. It looks like Twitter's back and YouTube's back online as well. All right, telling people to go to my stream with the green screen. All right, so let me do a couple more of these questions. I know, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what my problem with OBS Studio is. It did have a software update when I logged on this evening to get my live stream ready, so maybe they had some kind of buggy update in OBS, and I'll be looking forward to a firmware update on that. All right, so... All right, people are moving over to my other live stream. Hi, how are y'all doing? Now you get to see me, my studio that I have going on behind me here. All right. So I'm through all those questions on Facebook. I'm going to open up my green screen questions and see if I have anything here to answer. So yes, if the signature collection stays at 3%, you will need to get 12,175 signatures not to pay for ballot access. For me personally, and that would be all Democrats, where it's tough getting signatures, especially as an independent. I had Republicans, Independents, Green Party, Democrats. I had all sorts of people signing my petition, and we didn't even need to get 12,000. We only needed 10,000. You need to reach out to Mike Hutman for campaign software, Renegade Squirrel. Absolutely, Colin. I will check that out. I'll open up a tab onto his profile and send him a message later. Possibly, Allison. I know they definitely are not happy that a working class person who is unbeholden to special interests is running for office. All right. So let's see here. So I guess that's kind of, wow, I went way deep into that. I tried just answering all these questions. So I hope I was able to answer any of those questions about those filing fees and things like that running for office. And I do want to take some time to talk about my policy. Let's see. Okay, so just not people who voted in the Republican primaries. And again, they are going to vote to change their policies for filing here soon as well. All right, so let's talk about policy. I love talking about policy because policy is what makes a candidate. It doesn't matter what the platform you're behind, what party you're running underneath. Policy is how I vote for candidates. I don't care if they're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, a Green Party member, a space alien, or a Purple People Eater. I vote for me. Okay. Let's see. What will you do when corporate Dems... okay. What will you do when corporate Dems try to pressure you to vote with them progressive values? Well, the one thing that I'm going to do that's going to be different than a lot of representatives is the first thing I will do is I'm going to talk to my constituents and ask my constituents what they want me to do, because that's what's most important as a representative extending their voices. It doesn't matter what the Democratic Party or the Republican Party want to do. What matters is what you want me to do. All right. Okay, Facebook came back on. Got Mike there. Video ended. Awesome. So what will I do? First I'll ask my constituents what they want me to do, and then I will do what my constituents want me to do. I don't see myself just falling, in line with the party and what they want me to do unless it directly benefits my constituents. All right. And so... Okay. Why? You can talk. Okay. That's fine. All right. Policy. Sorry, my big boss lady's over there. My wife, I love her. Love you, hun. All right. Number one policy on my platform. This is never going to change. It's just so extremely important. Medicare for all. Medicare for all is going to be one of the most important pieces of legislation to pass in our lifetimes, only second to campaign finance reform. So when I talk about Medicare for all, I get a lot of pushback from Republicans or more moderate or centrist Democrats until I talk about what Medicare for all really is. Medicare for all never should have been named Medicare for all, because it's not Medicare for all. It's different. Medicare for all should have been named Healthcare for all, or something that didn't come with the stigmatisms of Medicare, where you have to have supplemental plans, and it's just not Medicare. What Medicare for all is it is a health care where the way that we pay for it is, number one, if you qualify for Medicaid right now, if you make less than $29,000 a year, it's no different. Your health care still will not cost you anything. Now, the average household income in Arkansas is $40,000 a year. And the way we're going to pay for Medicare for all is we are going to charge 4% of your income after $29,000. So if you're making $40,000 a year, you subtract 29, that leaves you with $11,000, and 4% of that is $440. That's not $440 a month. That's $440 per year for the average Arkansan household to have coverage for their entire family, medical, dental, and vision. That is huge. It's amazing. Why don't we have Medicare for all? Well, the problem is special interest contributions. We have a lot of Democrats and Republicans that are taking money from the health and pharmaceutical industry, and in return, they vote against Medicare for all. Medicare for all is going to save people so much money. One of the things when I was watching all the debates in it last year from all the different Democratic and Republican candidates here in Arkansas was the Republicans would say the same Republican lines over and over again. Medicare for all socialism, how are we going to pay for it? And it's going to cost taxpayers $30 trillion over 10 years. Well, let me help educate you. Yes, it is going to cost money. 4% of your income after $29,000, average Arkansan household, $440 per year. Now, it is not socialism because we're still paying for it. Yes, it will cost taxpayers $30 trillion over 10 years, but what it will also do is it will save us $4 trillion because our current private system costs American taxpayers $34 trillion over 10 years. So it will save us money in the long run. It is better. It will make sure that everybody has medical coverage. That is just on the American working class employee view in part. What it's also going to do is it's going to allow employers to save money on medical insurance costs. So right now, my wife and I, we work over at JB Hunt. They do not endorse me. This is not an endorsement or anything, but we work there. That's where we work. And we have health coverage through our employer. We paid $860 per month, and we have a $1,500 deductible. What that means is we have to pay Blue Cross Blue Shield $11,000 per year before having insurance helps our family. $11,000 a year. It's insane. Now, what a lot of people don't know is, yes, we pay $860 a month, but our employer also pays $860 a month, meaning Blue Cross Blue Shield is really getting about $22,000 per year from my employer and my family. Now, a lot of employers won't offer medical coverage and benefits and things like that because how expensive it is. Now, what Medicare for All is going to do is it's actually going to lower the cost for employers as well as the employees. If we pay 4% of our income after $29,000, our employer will pay 7.5% of our salary after $29,000. So if we're paying, so $440 a year for our health coverage, our employer will pay about $800 per year to offer us our health coverage. That is not a lot of money compared to what these employers are paying right now for medical coverage. That's going to allow employers to be more competitive, to offer, hey, I'm going to pay you minimum wage and I'm also going to give you health benefits. That's why you should come work for me. It's going to, you should never pay minimum wage. Anyways, different thing for later on. But that's the point I'm making. It's going to save employees money. It's going to save employers money. It's going to save everybody money. But you know what? Maybe Pfizer and maybe some of these billion-dollar corporations aren't going to be profiting $100 billion. They might profit like $50 billion. Okay, Americans are going to we're going to save American lives and save American livelihoods. So that's why I support Medicare for All. It's super important. And if you ever have any questions about Medicare for All, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Shoot me a text message, an email, a phone call. I will talk to you or whoever you want about Medicare for All. Let me see here real quick. I see more questions coming in. Oh my gosh. Yes, the labeling, Healthcare for All does sound better. Do you feel that folks here tend to be too focused on Arkansas politics? If you serve in the U.S. Senate, you could be more involved in international issues. Are there some international issues that you would like to discuss that have an impact on Arkansans, such as ending Trump's work on trade with China and things like that? So absolutely. It's actually very interesting because it's no secret in history that trade tariffs hurt us. They hurt consumers. Consumers are the people who pay the price for trade tariffs. It never falls back on the Chinese government. It doesn't fall back on our government. Who it falls back on is us. That's why we're paying more money for things that cost less money before. So trade wars historically don't work. And surprise, surprise, the trade war with China also has not worked. I did get A in micro and macroeconomics, like most people do because economics isn't hard. But one of the things that you learn when you take economics is how economics works. So we have a set amount of resources and we have a set amount of labor. And other countries also have a set amount of resources and a set amount of labor. We can spend more resources and less labor on some things that other countries can spend less resources and less labor on. And then we trade things that like electronics and cars and things like that with other countries. And then they give us things that are more labor intensive and cheaper, like socks and shoes and clothes and things like that. So you have to have trade with other countries. You just make trades that benefit your country as well as benefiting theirs. That's why they specialize, like China specializes in most of our consumer goods, and we specialize mostly in electronics and software. And I hate to say it, but the war machine, weapons and missiles and ammunition and things like that. But you have to have trade, and ending these Chinese trade tariffs is going to be extremely important to helping lower prices for consumers, especially when so many people are struggling from the low incomes caused by COVID and things like that. Let's see here. How would Medicare for All work for self-employed or college students? Very good question. Well, number one, if you make less than $29,000 a year, if you're a college student per se, of course you qualify for Medicare. You don't have to pay for it. It is for no cost to you. And if you are self-employed, then I'm not 100% sure, but what I would assume was you would probably pay the 7.5% of what your own salary is. And if you don't have your own salary because you are self-employed and you are a no employee company, I'm not sure how it would work, but I would assume you would just qualify for it. Or you might have to pay, say, maybe the 7.5% plus 4% for 11%. That's a lot of money. I'm really not sure, Lee. And oh no. Okay. All right, I do have someone who is very educated on Medicare for All, and I will ask her this evening how the self-employed are going to pay for Medicare for All, so I can give you a clear, concise answer. Let's see. If the federal government could effectively tax cannabis and regulate it in a functioning way, healthcare for all would be so easy to cover the cost of. Absolutely, Starla, 100%. And that's part of my platform. Let me run through this kind of real quick so I can see if I can get more questions because it is already 7 o'clock and I will be here, as long as y'all will stay with me, as long as I have people watching live, I'm talking about my policy platform, answering questions. So these different things on my policy, they're not ordered in any specific way. They're not ranked by importance. So the next thing on here is campaign finance reform. One of the most important things that we can do as a generation is to pass just legitimate campaign finance reform legislation. We have to end Citizens United. We have to remove special interest contributions from politicians' pockets if we want our politicians and our representatives to start working for us again. Because currently, our representatives don't work for us. And I mean, I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats alike. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats don't work for us. They work for their special interest donors. Now, what we need to do is we need to have publicly funded campaigns. It is no secret that 86% of candidates with more campaign contributions win an election. So right now, if you want to get some kind of legislation passed that's going to benefit you personally or your business, then you just have to give a candidate enough money. And once that candidate has enough of your money, they have more money than their opponents, and then they will statistically win the campaign and then vote on legislation that's going to help you out. We see this especially a lot with the Koch brothers, where the Koch brothers I think they dished out like $400 million. They were able to get together collectively $400 million for the 2018 election cycle. And then they were able to actually get the new Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, which lowered their taxes, and it also temporarily removed the estate tax. And by temporarily removing the estate tax, when I believe it was like Charles Koch, when he died, during that temporary estate tax removal, it saved his widow from having to pay taxes on over $50 billion. So there are special interests out there that are willing to put giant sums of money into elections to save billions of dollars. We've got to get money out of politics. We have to make sure that when companies like Walmart and Tyson are putting a ton of money into candidates' bank accounts, that we aren't having those candidates vote on regulations or to deregulate those same corporations, or voting on things to lower taxes and giving, we have to be careful about money in politics. But campaign finance reform, that's a very important one on my policy page. Let's see here. Taking on climate change is also an extremely important thing we have to do in 2020. Again, for the 6th year in a row, 2020 was the hottest year on record. Climate change is real. We can't ignore it. It is going to be the biggest existential threat to humankind that our species will ever see. We have to do something about it. And the only way we're going to do something about it is to, number one, with campaign finance reform, we've got to get the fossil fuel money out of our candidates' pockets. We've got to get our candidates working for us, worrying about how we are going to sustain the planet for our children and our grandchildren, rather than where their next paycheck is coming from Exxon or, Chevron or Shell or one of these other giant oil and gas companies. So we have to focus on climate change. There are a few things we can do here in Arkansas to really help that as well. So we have wonderful areas. I mean, where our mountain ranges and our plateaus come down into the valley and into, oh man, word just flew out of my head. Where we have these mountain ranges, especially the Ouachita Mountains, they actually are ranked really high for wind energy. So we can have wind turbines over in the Ouachita Mountains. We can have them down in the River Valley. We can have turbines in these areas where we have high winds all the time. So really help generate, wind energy. We can also have solar energy all across our state. We're actually a very sunny state here in Arkansas. We can have solar panels on every single home in our state. And how do we do that? All we would have to do is reallocate fossil fuel subsidies for just a few years, and instead use that money that we're just subsidizing fossil fuel companies that are already profiting hundreds of billions of dollars into putting solar panels on every Arkansan's house. And if we can do something like that, it's going to lower our energy costs for Arkansans. You're going to have, as an Arkansan, electric bill less than $20 a month. And then it's also going to help lower carbon emissions as well. So there are things we can do to combat climate change. We just have to do them. And there are things we also have to do where we need to acknowledge that climate change, in some ways, we're already past the point of no return. For the most part, in different ways, where we have to start worrying about heavier rains. We need to make sure our dams are ready to take on these heavier rains. We need to reinforce our dams. We need to rebuild our infrastructure, make sure that our bridges aren't flooding and that our roads aren't flooding. There are a lot of things we have to do to prepare for the climate catastrophes that are going to be coming no matter what we do. And another fix this. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so embarrassed. My first live stream, OBS keeps connecting and reconnecting. But anyways, so thorium energy is extremely important. A lot of people don't know what thorium is. Thorium is a nuclear energy. Right now, we use uranium as a fuel in our reactors for our uranium nuclear power plants. Now, thorium can do way better than uranium does. But what's important to know right away, that the reason we use uranium in our nuclear reactors is because the radioactive waste from uranium is, it's processed into plutonium and processed into bombs. We make bombs with the waste from our uranium nuclear facilities. That's why we use uranium, because thorium doesn't produce the same waste. We need to stop worrying about making new bombs and start worrying about what's best for our planet and to save money for the people. Now, thorium is amazing. One of the really, really big advantages to thorium is that right now, if you start having a meltdown in a uranium reactor, like we saw in a Chernobyl or Hiroshima, or not Hiroshima, oh my gosh, Fukushima, once that reaction starts, there's no way to stop it. So once a uranium reaction starts, there's no way to stop it. Now, with thorium, on the other hand, thorium is actually powered by a core. And the core is inserted into the fuel and the reaction is taking place. If a meltdown begins to occur, you remove the fuel source, and in less than a millisecond, the reaction is done and the threat of a meltdown is over. So it's a lot safer to use as well. Thorium is way more abundant. When they use uranium, only like 4% of the molecule's energy is actually converted, where when you use thorium, 96% of the energy is converted. So it's a lot more sustainable, and it's really, really easy to find. I was doing research, and there's actually just a mine up in Missouri. It's not even a thorium mine. They mine other minerals, precious minerals, but in the dirt that they haul out every single year, they haul out enough thorium out of that mine to power the entire planet. And I think they do that in like a month. So we can do it. We just have to make sure that people are investing in a thorium future and working again to not create weapons, but to create safe energy for the people on our planet. All right. Done about thorium. Sorry. And if you guys have any questions, again, feel free to ask. I can kind of ramble a little bit. Let's see here. Down with corporate welfare. Absolutely. I actually have a theorized tax plan where I think we should change the way we tax people. I guess I can kind of get into it. It's coming. So let me mark these off. Lower taxes. Here we go. So one of the things I really want to see done is I want to see taxes lowered for the working class, because right now the working class is paying huge percentages of their income in taxes. Yes, we don't pay as much as, say, Bill Gates does, but we pay a lot of money compared to what we have. Most average working class families are going to be paying between 18 to 25% of their income in taxes, which is huge. So we need to work on lowering taxes for the working class. Now, one thing that is a big problem with the way that our society and our government works is we have tax evasion loopholes in our tax code. These tax evasion loopholes were put into place by legislators who took money from billionaires. Our government has been sold to the highest bidder. So what we need to do is we need to remove these tax evasion loopholes. We shouldn't have billionaires like Jeff Bezos who pay $0 in taxes. We shouldn't have corporations like Amazon and FedEx and Netflix that pay $0 in taxes. We shouldn't have things like that. I'm not saying that we need to go back to like 1952 and tax the richest 1/10 of 1%. I think it was 92% of their income. I'm not saying something crazy like tax them 92%. I could see how it probably wouldn't be a terrible thing, but that's not what I'm proposing. What I'm proposing is billionaires should pay 20 to 25%, just like you and me, just like our families do, 20 to 25%, which, you know what? It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot more than the 0% that they're currently paying right now. Bill Gates once joked about, hey, I pay so much in taxes, blah, blah, blah. I pay more than anyone else. I paid $10 billion in taxes. So his net worth was $100 billion and he paid $10 billion in taxes. I'm not a genius or anything, but that sounds like 10% to me. He's complaining about paying 10% in taxes when you and me pay 20% in taxes every single time we get a paycheck. It's crazy. So it's not anything like really far-fetched, just 20%. Make billionaires pay taxes like we do in corporate subsidies and corporate welfare. If there's a corporation that is taking in, billions of dollars a year in profit, they shouldn't be receiving millions or even hundreds of $1 million a year in government subsidies. It just shouldn't be a thing. And if we can eliminate those corporate subsidies that are going to corporations profiting billions, enforce taxes on corporations profiting billions, and enforce taxes on billionaires, then what we could do is we could lower taxes for the working class and have even more tax revenue than we currently have. All right. The next thing on here, let's see here. Someone already kind of talked about it just a little bit. Yes, Lee, I do support the Green New Deal and the federal jobs guarantee. So you kind of said Starla in YouTube, a little bit about cannabis. So I do support the federal decriminalization of cannabis and nationally expunging cannabis-related convictions. It is so extremely important that we allow our legal businesses to work with FDIC-insured banks, that we allow our legal businesses not to have to worry about where their cash is, if their money is safe, if they have, a lot of our businesses are actually rated by the DEA. We have legal American businesses who have broken no laws, who have the DEA send agents into their workplace. They will go inside, handcuff everybody, take them all out, take all of their product, take all of their assets, go back out, let everybody go and say, hey, we'll see you in 6 months. And they are legal Gestapo. It is crazy. We have to protect our legal businesses from this kind of predatory behavior from the DEA. So we do need to decriminalize cannabis. That is extremely important. Now, on top of that, it's very interesting right now because I could go pay Arkansas is a little bit different. We kind of have our cannabis industry here monopolize the medicinal way, where we have a big issue where the person who hands out permits to have a dispensary or to grow cannabis, unfortunately, they handed out a lot of those licenses to their friends and not so much to people trying to start a job, start their own business. So we have to make sure that someone wearing a suit and doing legally in California, Colorado, Washington, I think it's like so many different states now, like over a dozen or 24 states, those people are doing the same thing people have done here and are spending the rest of their lives in prison for. We need to make sure that we decriminalize and as well nationally expunge cannabis convictions for nonviolent offenders. So there shouldn't be any kids who are like 18 years old or 25 or even 30, someone who's 30 years old who maybe did something they may not be proud of when they were younger, and they got caught with a seed in their car or a stem or whatever, and now they have a felony following for them for the rest of their life, making their life difficult. We need to help those Americans out by getting those nonviolent cannabis offenses off of their records. Let's see here. Yes, it's oh man, is it sodium fluoride? I think it's sodium fluoride. Sorry, Tucker. But yeah, it is not a rod. It is sodium fluoride. Here, Anthony Clark, how will you reach out to Republican voters and let them know you will fight for them? Are there some policies that you and a Republican voter agree on? So thank you, Anthony. That's a really, really good question. And the way that I'm going to get to Republican voters, of course, through the technological era that we're looking at right now, I am going to of course, be having my live streams. I do Q&As all the time. I do AMAs on Reddit. I will also be, as soon as we get our vaccines, probably in April with everybody else, and then I can start traveling again. And I will be traveling the state. I will be talking to people face to face, talking about policies, about my platform, about how we have the highest taxes and the lowest wages, and poor healthcare, poor education, all these different things that we can really greatly improve on in our state in Arkansas. And do I, have different policies that Republicans do support? Well, I am pro Second Amendment. I believe that it is. All right, we lost OBS for a second and then it reconnected. So let me go back. I wouldn't vote to ban assault weapons with such a broad definition, because what is an assault weapon? Are you talking about a rifle or a semi-automatic rifle? Are you talking about anything that can have a magazine larger than 15 rounds? I mean, there's just so many things. The definition is very broad. It'd have to be more concise so that we don't unintentionally make the law worse than they already are. If my constituents and majority wanted me to ban a specific style or thing of weapon, then of course I would do that because I work for my constituents and I would do what my constituents wanted me to do. Now, if we did ban a specific style of weapon, one thing that I think is really important is we would have to grandfather current owners of these weapons, of these firearms, so that they're not breaking the law. For example, I own a Walther Q5 match. Now, if tomorrow they made a Walther Q5 match illegal, then I would want to make sure that anyone who legally purchased property doesn't have to forfeit their property that they legally purchased. We would have to grandfather that if you had bought a Walther Q5 match by January 15th, 2021, then you are allowed to possess that firearm, something like that. So we have to be really careful about firearm restrictions and laws because we don't want to have unintentional consequences, because there are always unintentional consequences, as we're seeing with this new SB 24 and Stand Your Ground that we've been looking at here in Arkansas with our state senators. So one thing that I do support as far as Second Amendment goes is universal background checks. We have to make sure that people are, receiving a background check before they purchase a firearm. It is extremely important. Right now, if I want to go buy a firearm from Cabela's, Bass Pro, Walmart, or wherever, then I will do a background check. And they will check my background, and they will make sure I am not a felon. And as long as I'm not a felon and I pass the background check, they will sell me a firearm. That is how it's supposed to work, to make sure that we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. Now, unfortunately, the ways that the laws are currently written, you don't have to have a background check when you purchase a firearm. If I myself was to go sell you my Walther Q5 match tomorrow, I would take your cash, I would hand you my weapon, and I have not broken a law. And as far as I know, you have not broken a law. Now, unbeknownst to me, you could be a felon. And you may not be allowed to purchase a firearm, but I didn't do my due diligence to perform a background check to find out whether or not you are a felon. So I unintentionally broke the law selling a felon a firearm. Now, these can be, it's not hard to do a background check. We live in a technological era. It's insane. We can pay, you can call the electric company and pay your electric bill over the phone. It's not hard. I do think we have to be very careful with background checks and make sure that we are not overcharging and, making an encumbrance for people to want to do the background checks. Just some simple processing fee, say 99 cents. Call in, enter in the information on automated line. It'll come back within 10, 15 minutes, say, okay, you pass a background check. Simple stuff. We have to make sure that we are ending these gun show loopholes by requiring people to do background checks. And then, so it comes back, well, how do you make sure they did a background check? Well, you got to hold the person liable. If you sell a firearm to someone, you should be liable for that firearm if you did not, perform the background check. And I know a lot of people or gun owners are going to be like, well, I don't want that liability, blah, blah, blah. Well, do background check. It's not hard. It's super easy. We want to make sure it's not an encumbrance. It's not expensive. It's just something that's right to make sure that we try to keep the guns out of the hands of the wrong people. Because that's the main thing, is how do you keep firearms out of the hands of the people who shouldn't have firearms? That's $1 million question. None of us have a good answer for it, but this is just the best that I can think of personally as a gun owner and as someone trying to be responsible to who I would sell a firearm to. All right, let's see here. Been verified. Yeah, there's definitely ways to do it. Let's see here. Scrolling down a little bit. Tucker. Yes. And we'll see, maybe 40 minutes, maybe a little bit more, working on it. So Tucker, will you fight to help get states to ratify the Congressional Apportionment Amendment, which was the first amendment proposed by the founders and the last of the original 12 not to be passed? It would cap representatives' constituencies at 50K so that the House would be expanded dramatically. Basically what he's saying right now is, do I support expanding Congress? It's really tough because we have 435 state House representatives, not state House representatives, federal House representatives, 435 of them. And 435 people are supposed to represent 330 million people. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. So I I would say 20 years ago, I'd be like, nah, there's no way we could expand Congress because there's just no feasible way to get, say, 10,000 congressmen into a building to collaborate and to get things done. Well, welcome to 2021. We have this little thing called technology. We have live streams. We have, all these different things at our fingertips, these tools that we can use to make sure that we could have a fully participating larger Congress. So would I support making Congress bigger? Absolutely. I think we could do it. And with the COVID era that we've seen this last year, it can be done. We've seen how people have switched things to virtually, from work to school to meetings to political parties. All of these different things have been switching to online. And if we can manage all of this, I think we could manage a larger Congress so that we could have better representation in the legislative branch. I do think so, yes. Let's see here. All right, so I'm all caught up on questions on Facebook. Yes. Have you watched the 2018 National Geographic documentary? Paris to Pittsburgh covers a lot of good ideas for combating climate change while creating jobs and increasing our I think it's GDP. Paris to Pittsburgh. I will check out Paris to Pittsburgh, Mr. Lee, this evening after I do my homework and watch an episode of Dragon Ball Z Kai with my daughter. All right. Cool. So I'm all caught up in questions. Let's moving right along to criminalize cannabis. Another thing that's extremely important is eliminating student debt. Not 10,000, not 50,000. We need to eliminate student debt. I get a lot of pushback, especially from older people who are like, well, I went to school, I worked a job, I paid off all my student debt, and look at me now. Well, yes, thank you so much for being a contributing American to society, to going to school, to helping, further our society. Thank you so very much. But things have changed. Just in the last 10 years alone, the cost of books, not tuition, but books, has increased by 1,000%. I am a college student right now. I'm taking 2 courses right now. And for my 2 courses out of pocket, I'm paying $890. Which is cheap. These courses I'm doing at community college because they transfer to U of A when I transfer next semester. But that's like $900 just for tuition for 2 courses. And if you're looking at 6 courses, like a full-time student, I mean, that's like almost $3,000 in tuition before books per semester. So it is very expensive now to go to school. And again, that's at a community college. That's not at a university. At a university, it's a lot more expensive. So yes, you did do everything the right way. Thank you so much. But there's still people doing things the right way. But unfortunately, the way education has changed is that it has become a more for-profit thing rather than a for-education thing to better society. And we need to make sure that education is treated as what it is, which is one of the most important parts of our society. And we need to eliminate student debt to do that. If we can alleviate $18 trillion, actually, I think it was $16.7 trillion we gave big banks to bail them out in 2008. We can afford to bail out hardworking American citizens who have school debt, student loan debt, for $1.7 trillion. We can afford to do it. And you know what? How about this? How about those banks that we gave $16.7 trillion to just go on their keyboard? You know how they get rid of debt? Boom. Debt's gone. Not a hard process. They can do it, and they can pay us back for helping them out when they needed help. So let's see here. Yes, a great point, Allison. Tuition goes up while wages remain stagnant. All right, let's see here. Eliminating student debt. Anthony Clark, you have so many great questions. I hope you join me for all my live streams. Thank you so much. Do you plan on recruiting a lot of college kids and young people? I know that Ed Markey managed moved to defeat Joe Kennedy. Young people are tech savvy. Absolutely. Again, that 45.5% of eligible voters that did not vote, a lot of those are students. A lot of students didn't feel that excitement. What we really need is we need candidates that get people excited to go vote. We have to be excited to go vote. Otherwise, we don't go vote. Well, personally, not me. I always vote, but that's how a lot of people feel. So we have to figure out how to get those younger people involved in politics, especially they're already so stressed out with work and life and girls and boys and food and how am I going to pay for this? They have so much stuff to stress about. The last thing they want to think about is politics. Well, start talking about Medicare for all, making sure that they have medical coverage so that they don't have to worry about that. Start talking about eliminating student debt so that they can not worry about the financial burdens of going to school. You start talking about things like raising wages so that when they finish their school, they can actually make enough money to live the American dream, to be happy with their life and content. There are things we can do to get children and younger adults excited about politics, but we have to go out and do it. We need to make sure we're going out to colleges, we're talking to students, we're talking to them about politics, how important it is to vote, and what different policies are and how different policies will affect their lives. There's lots of things that we can do to get younger people to vote, but you have to have the people willing to go and spend that time to go do that. Let's see here. Usually it goes back through live streams. Oh, Allison, did you ask something? I asked a couple questions on the other stream before it cut off. I don't know if I saw these. I will go back to the other streams that cut off. Again, I'm so sorry about that. OBS, I'll have to get that fixed. And I will answer your questions and the replies to them. All right, moving on. Next thing, another extremely important policy that I support is taking on the military-industrial complex and helping to end American imperialism. We have a terrible problem of going to foreign nations and bombing them just so that we can go in and steal their natural resources. There's no such thing as a poor nation. There's just a poor people being taken advantage of in a nation. And we need to make sure that we are not taking advantage of people to better ourselves. We cannot be... Arkansas, specifically, in particular, our number one export here in Arkansas is smart missiles. How crazy is that? Ammunition. We build bombs here in Arkansas. Some of our state legislators are proud of it, but honestly, I'm not. I'm disgusted by it. There are other things we could be doing besides building bombs to bring revenue to our state. We could be growing cannabis. We could be, if you don't grow cannabis, we could be growing hemp and turning hemp into biodiesel fuel. We could be growing hemp and turning hemp into plastic, building materials, clothing, all these different things we could be doing besides building missiles. But instead of building things that are better for the planet and that better our society, we are busy making weapons and weapons of war. It's just terrible. And again, that comes back to campaign finance reform. We have the gentleman I'm running against, Senator John Boozman. He's taken over $100,000 from the military-industrial complex, and in return, he added an amendment onto the military defense bill that added 525 million tax dollars to go to a defense contractor to build bombs. That's crazy. So we need to make sure that we are, again, working on campaign finance reform and getting money out of politics. We don't need to be known for making bombs. We need to be known for something else. Did you know Arkansas, back in the day, we were the number three in the entire country producer of hemp before hemp was made illegal. And back in 2017 with the new farm bill, they decriminalized hemp and we could be growing hemp. Why aren't we? That's a good question. That'll really help our Delta regions where we have the lowest incomes per county, per capita. We could really help these areas that are suffering do so much better if we reallocated some of the subsidies that are going to giant corporations like Tyson and Simmons and instead reallocate those subsidies to going to small farms to get people to grow hemp, to start growing hemp so we can process it, be the number one producer, exporter, and processor of hemp. We could do things like that. We just need the leadership that wants to do it. Let's see here. Live stream. Okay. I'll ask on this one. How do we combat the rise of fascism in America? I hear Democrats talking about unifying, and I don't understand how we can unify with white nationalists. Wow, what a hard question that is, because there's no good answer. The last thing I want to do is I do not want to unify with white supremacists. I do not want to unify with domestic terrorists. And I'm pretty sure a lot of my friends and family and you and your friends and family don't either. So how do we unify with these people? The best way to unify is to have a common enemy. Which is why Joe Biden really wants to have a strong Republican Party, so we have a good common enemy. But anyways, the best way to unify is against a common enemy, and we need to determine an enemy, and through that enemy, we can come together. And for me personally, I think those enemies are going to be campaign finance reform, high taxes, low wages, lack of education, lack of health care, and focus on these things that Republicans and Democrats are, struggling with together. And if we can focus on these policies that everybody is struggling with at the same time, then we can have that common enemy and we can unify against it. But as far as, how do you, I don't have a good answer. How do you unify with a Nazi? You don't. You don't. Oh man, no good answer for that. Let's see here. Oh, nice to see you again, Mr. John Paul. Has he made any recent comments this week? I'm not sure who you're talking about. If you're talking about me, no, I think it's been about, 8 or 9 years since I've made an ignorant comment. Let's see. I swallow. Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, Trump is gone, fortunately. He's got just a few more days, and then we don't have to worry about that anymore. Sedition is a serious crime. That's something I really didn't want to talk too much about, the Capitol riots and insurrection event and sedition and all of our legislators, because I was trying to keep this more upbeat. So what I will do is I will talk in detail about sedition in my next live stream, so that I can make sure everyone is up to date on what's going on here in Arkansas, specifically with sedition, besides the 2 Arkansan men who were just arrested for partaking in the Capitol riots and injuring police officers. Would you consider something like Marcora, which is an Italian law which allowed unemployed people receiving unemployment benefits to team up with at least 9 other people and start working cooperatives? I've heard something about that. It's a really good idea. For example, when Mitt Romney's venture capitalist firm bought and bankrupted Toys R Us, and 75K workers could have come together and used their combined unemployment benefits as a collateral to buy Toys R Us or start another business like that. I mean, that's wonderful. Those are all really, really good things that I want to keep in the back of my mind when I do have the ability and authority to start submitting bills like this. One of the things that I want to do is I will be a representative for you, and I will extend your voice in the legislative process. And by doing that, or a way I will do that is I will submit 12 bills. All right. Water. This is my daughter's water. I just don't know how clean it is. Kids in their water. All right. So one thing I want to do is I want to be a delegate representative. I have already pledged to hold 12 town halls per year. I will continue doing these weekly live stream Q&As where I will talk about what happened in the previous legislative session, what's upcoming in the next week's legislative session, and I will answer questions on these live streams. And I will also be submitting 12 bills per year created by Arkansans, my constituents. I will have an online way, or you can way through email or mail or however, where my constituents can submit ideas for a bill. And then I will post those ideas online for people to see, and you can vote on those ideas on whether it is a popular or unpopular idea. And the bills that have the most popular votes at the end of each month, I will put into a form where I can submit it into Congress. And I will make sure that we are bringing Arkansans' voices into the legislative process, because that's what I believe a senator and even a congressman, a House member, a representative should be doing. All right. Let's see. Ending private prisons. That kind of goes along with taking on the military-industrial complex, decriminalizing cannabis, things like that. We have to end private prisons. We should not be filling prison cells just to make a profit. There is no reason for that, because what that does is it gives law enforcement an incentive to have quotas to fill prison cells. 85% of the people in jail, 85% of people in jail have not been convicted of a crime. I'll say that again. 85% of people in jail have not been convicted of a crime. That is disgusting. It's terrible. We have to do something about it. We have to make sure that we are not filling cells to make money. Jail should be rehabilitation. Prison should be rehabilitation. We need to be making sure. I'm so sorry that it keeps disconnecting on Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch, or Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And I will make sure that before I do my next live stream, I have that fixed. So we have to end private prisons. We need to make sure that prisons are being used to rehabilitate, not to turn a profit. We have to end chain gangs. We need to make sure we're ending prison labor. If someone wants to go out and pick up trash on the side of the road or something to get kind of out and be around people for a while, of course, but we have to end mandatory things like in California where people, we have prisoners going out and being firefighters, putting their lives on the line for pennies on a dollar an hour. It's crazy. But we have to make sure that we are humane. We account for 25% of the world's incarcerated people. 25% of the people incarcerated in the entire world are in America, and we only account for about 5% of the world's population or something like that. It's really crazy. And especially here in Arkansas has the fourth highest people in prison per capita in the entire country. So it is something we need to be talking about. It's something that we need to be figuring out how to deal with, and ending private prisons and federalizing all of them is a really great way to do it real fast and to make sure that every single prison is living up to federal regulations and federal standards. That way we don't have people sleeping in cells on cement with no blankets or in dirty cells and not eating, not having a heat or, cool air in the summer, different things like that. It's, of course, you've broken the law. You need to be in prison. You need to be rehabilitated to come back into being part of society, but it shouldn't be torture. All right. We're getting down to the end of all of this. Let's see here. I've got just 4 more things to talk about, and they all kind of coincide a little bit together. Let me make sure I'm all good with... Let me add Mike Hutman to Facebook real quick. Good on Twitter. All right, good on YouTube. And good on Facebook. Awesome. Okay, so I'm all caught up on questions. The next thing I wanted to talk about was law enforcement reform. Law enforcement reform is extremely important. We saw how important this was back in June and July during the BLM protests and how the law enforcement was responding to these protests, and specifically about how law enforcement responded to the Capitol protests. So, of course, there's a big difference in the two. And that's because we have a systemic problem of racism sewn into our society. And we have to start working on making that better. We have to start weeding out the systemic racism. That way we can start rebuilding our society in a way that is best for all of us and not just in the image of a few white nationalists. There are a few different things we can do for law enforcement reform. Oh, man. Should have read my policy page before this, but I was out of time. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we end qualified immunity. If police officers actually have to answer for their actions and have consequences for their actions, they will be a lot less likely to do actions that they know are not good or unethical or that they wouldn't normally do. Another thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have a national police registry. That way, when an officer is reprimanded and discharged from a precinct or department or a station in one area, they can't move to another one and just start being a bad cop somewhere else. We've got to make sure we put an end to that. We need to make sure we have regular annual de-escalation training. A police officer's job should be to arrive, to assess, to de-escalate, and to use the minimum force necessary after that to take control of the situation. But we have a problem of law enforcement officers showing up to a scene just ready to pull their guns out and use deadly force before even assessing, before attempting to de-escalate, or just not even using the minimum force necessary but the maximum deadly force possible. So these are definitely things that we need to make sure cops are trained with annually. Another thing that we can do is we can make sure that we raise the educational requirements to be a law enforcement officer. And the national average is a 2-year associate's degree to apply to be a police officer. But in some places like Arkansas, you can have a high school GED and become a law enforcement officer after taking 6 weeks of police officer training. We have to make sure we have better educational requirements to be a police officer. Now, because of course, what's most important, what kills me, is when a police officer knows less about the law that they are enforcing than you do. Police officers should know all about the laws they're enforcing, or they shouldn't be enforcing those laws in the first place because they're not qualified to do so. So on top of higher educational requirements for law enforcement officers, we need to also make sure that we are raising the salary for police officers. These people, these Americans, they have to get up every day, get out of their bed really early in the morning, kiss their kids, don't even get to see their kids in the morning, their wives, depending on the shifts, of course. Go out, not know if they're coming home that day, and put their life into the hands of their partners and at risk every single day. So we need to make sure that this extremely important position is paying enough to get the right people into it. I believe the average law enforcement salary in Arkansas, the average police salary is like $36,000 a year. And that is just not enough money to go get a good education, to go put your life on the line. We need to make sure that we are treating them to be the heroes that they are, and that they start acting like the heroes we are treating them to be. All right. Ranked choice voting. Again, like I said, the order of these was in no particular way because ranked choice voting is, again, super important. One of the reasons that I'm running as a Democrat and not as an independent is because how hard it is to get ballot access, and my platform closely aligns with the Democratic platform. Now, one thing that I can do once I get elected as a Democrat representing Arkansas in the United States Senate is I can help push things like ranked choice voting. And I can help push things like ballot access laws. Here in Arkansas, it's so crazy because a United States Senate candidate as an independent needs 10,000 verified signatures, and a United States president candidate as an independent only needs 1,000. We need to make sure that we are allowing people to get ballot access that want to run for office. And we need to make sure that we have ranked choice voting in place to get away from this whole duopoly problem of, well, I don't like the Republican, but I like let's see, I can say that better. So from a Democrat standpoint, you can be like, well, I don't like the Democrat, but it's a Republican, so I'm going to vote for the Democrat anyways, because if I don't vote for the Democrat, then the Republican's going to win, and I don't want the Republican to win. Do you see the dilemma right there? Now, if there's ever a third person brought into the mix, now you have a problem, especially if the third person comes in and you really, really like that third person. They're a working class Joe. They've been through the struggles you've been through. They support all the policies you like. You like this person a lot, but you're a Democrat, and you know if you don't vote for the Democrat, the Republican's going to win, so you're not going to vote for that independent. So we have to make sure that we get ranked choice voting in place so that we don't have to worry about voting for a lesser of two evils ever again, but we can vote for the candidates that we want and not give the more evil of two evils the better opportunity to win. All right. Ranked choice voting, super important. Another really important thing here in Arkansas are renters' rights. Arkansas is one of the only states in America, it is not one of the only, it is the only state in America where renters don't have rights. How crazy is that? So, number one, your landlord doesn't have to keep your residents up to a standard of living. So if it's, say, January 16th, I don't even know, it's pretty cold out today. There was snow on the ground this morning. Say it's 27 degrees outside, very cold in the middle of winter, and your heater doesn't work, your furnace doesn't work, and you've called your landlord 15 times over the last 3 months to fix your furnace because you knew it was going to be getting cold, but they just didn't do it. Well, they legally don't have to do it. Now, because they didn't do it, and you're sitting there wrapped up in your blanket with your little heater on and you're shaking in your house, you're like, you know what? I'm not going to pay my rent next month. I'm not going to do it. Arkansas is the only state where they can put you in jail for doing that. For not paying your rent, they can put you in jail. How crazy is that? So we need to make sure, since Arkansas is the only state where this is an issue, that is a federal law. We have to have federal renters' rights, and any representative in Arkansas should be pushing for this because it benefits their constituents and it will pass. So that's another really important thing is renters' rights. People shouldn't be forced to live in roach-infested, rat-infested slums because some out-of-state millionaire bought an apartment complex and didn't do anything to it, and they aren't taking care of it. And there's black mold everywhere and asbestos. And these aren't problems that Americans in 2021 should have to deal with. And a federal renters' rights law will help protect Arkansans so much. All right. But I mean, that's pretty much, I didn't put everything in my policy on my list, but I just wanted to go through a few different things on there because, of course, we're going to talk about other policy issues in future live streams because I'm going to be doing these every single Saturday at 6 p.m. Central from now until hopefully 2028. All right, let me see if I can catch up on some of these comments here. Ranked choice voting, proportional representation. Absolutely, those are very, very important things. I know this doesn't seem like a big issue, but could you use your power to try to bring money into saving old historic buildings? I'm from Hot Springs, and we have so many amazing historic buildings, and they are just decaying, and we're losing. Oh my gosh, that's a lot longer. I hit see more. And we are losing them, like with the Majestic and the DeSoto Hotel, which sadly burnt down, and the Vel de Rose is decaying, and the old Army Navy Hospital is vacant and is already starting to be vandalized. The old Army Navy Hospital, oh my gosh, what do you think can be done to save these old historic buildings instead of relying on the private sector? Because it is clear they don't care at all, as evident with an investment company wanting to drop $100 million on the Majestic property, which the city paid for buying it and cleaning everything up, when right next door is the Vel de Rose, which is decaying. So, of course, what it's always going to come down to is you're going to hear the GOP Republicans in the Senate saying, how are we going to pay for it? Well, if we can find a way to pay for it, absolutely. If we could decide that we want to remove, say, $500 million from the defense budget every single year and put $500 million into restoring historic buildings in America, yeah, I think that would be great. It's a great idea. I think that is very important, way more so than some Confederate statue. These buildings are history, especially in towns like Hot Springs. Me being from the West Coast, I never got to see any of these really old buildings. I mean, we have like historic downtown Sacramento and things like that, but the oldest buildings are like 100 years old, where, they have some really, really old buildings here that are just so amazing for anybody to see. And people travel the entire world to come, especially here to Arkansas, to see things like the Buffalo River and historic hot springs and different things like that. So it is very important, and it is definitely something that I would look into and I would want to help with. Yes. All right. Oh, 7:48. So what I'm going to do, I'm all caught up on all the questions. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Oh man, you know what I didn't pull up? It's my Twitch. But I usually don't have... Oh, okay, awesome. It looks like you came over to YouTube. Thanks. But yeah, man. Yeah, y'all. Guys, Arkansans, Americans, people, friends, family, everybody. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We really do. It is just so important that we never allow a single politician to run unopposed. And when we have only one Democratic candidate win in an entire state legislative race, I mean, only one Democrat won in 2020 for our state legislatures. One in a contested race. There were a couple Democrats that ran unopposed, but only one. These are big problems, and the problems, stem from other issues: low voter turnout, low voter excitement. So that's what we're going to focus on for the next year. We're going to focus on voter excitement, voter turnout, getting candidates ready to run. And we're going to do that by talking with the DPA and negotiating with them, lowering file fees so regular working class people can afford to run for office. We're going to have a lot of change here in the next couple of years, but it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take some help from y'all. So What I would like to leave y'all with is I'm going to post my Slack volunteer invite link. I'll post it in Twitter and on Facebook. And join our Slack. It's been kind of dead because I kind of put everything on hold until after the Georgia election so as not to take their steam. We're going to get excited. We're going to get going, and we're going to figure out how to get other people excited so that we can start to take our government and our state back from the special interests that purchased it. But thank you guys so much for joining me this evening. I really appreciate it. You guys are just so amazing as always. Your support is just outstanding. Thank you guys so much. But my name's Dan Whitfield. I am the Democratic candidate running for United States Senate to unseat and replace John Boozman in 2022. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night, a safe weekend. I'll see y'all next week, Saturday, 6 p.m. Central on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all that good stuff. May God bless y'all. May God bless America, and may God bless Arkansas.